Nobody ever paid attention to the old neighbor, until he did something that made the whole neighborhood lose its mind. What happened between him and an 11-year-old girl is hard to believe, even after you read it twice. The town lived its quiet, measured life until the Dixons moved into house number 7, a mother, a daughter, and a suitcase stuffed with secrets. Every evening was just like the last, shouting behind the walls, doors slamming, and only the neighbor's cat darting after shadows in the yard. Across the faded lawn lived Mr. Gray, grumpy, sharp-tongued, his face like a wrinkled old newspaper, each line a story of its own. He avoided people, and they repaid the favor. The only things that got a rise out of him were a battered chessboard and letters he kept hoping would arrive. Martha, Mrs. Dixon's 11-year-old daughter, would come outside only at dusk, quiet, always clutching a book, her mute stare one that adults avoided meeting. On the night everything began, she just sat on the porch while her mother slammed the door behind her, shutting out the world for the night. Gray noticed the girl from his window. He meant to go out for milk but stopped when he heard a muffled sob, he wasn't even sure why. "What are you doing here?" he grumbled, more out of habit than kindness. Martha didn't answer, she just dropped her book. The cover split, pages spilling out like her thoughts. Swearing under his breath, Gray gathered them up and, awkward as a bear in a china shop, sat beside her. That was the start of a conversation no one would believe, two lonely souls, two different ages, two different worlds. They sat in silence until the sky turned violet. Then he offered to teach her chess. For the first time in years, Gray saw the corner of Martha's mouth twitch. But the next day, something angry flickered in Mrs. Dixon's window, and soon, the whole neighborhood was abuzz with gossip. What happened next changed everything. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. How can a good deed become a reason for public shaming? By the next night, the whole street already knew the awful truth, but the real story was only just beginning to crawl out into the open. If you've never been the hero of a neighborhood rumor, you can't imagine how fast kindness can turn into an interrogation. The next day, Gray stepped outside, and for the first time in a decade, he was met not just by shadows, but by stares, sharp, suspicious, and full of whispered accusations. "Did you see him sitting with that girl? Isn't the old guy a little too friendly?" the whispers snickered. Martha didn't come out, maybe her mother forbid her, or maybe she was scared. Her mother screamed so loud the whole block heard. Gray was left alone on his island of silence. Only the chessboard remained, his battleground, and a letter written in the night with no one to send it to. That evening, Mrs. Dixon appeared at his door. Like a prosecutor, she stormed in uninvited. "What did you do to my daughter?" she spat, voice as sharp as a sewing needle. "Taught her chess, if that's a crime," Gray fired back, dry and sarcastic. "Stop acting like some kind of savior," she barked and slammed the door behind her, leaving a storm in her wake. That night, Martha snuck over to his porch, tear-stained, barefoot, clutching her broken book. "Can I just sit here?" He nodded, saying nothing. That's how they met the dawn, her tears mixing with his tea. But the next morning, a police car was parked outside his house. This is the turning point. Everything you've been waiting for is right here. Stay tuned to see how the hero stands up to them all. When a town splits into for and against, who throws the first stone? Sometimes, the rescuer becomes the accused, putting not just his reputation, but his life on the line. The police searched Gray's house as if they were looking for a whole crime novel on every shelf, not a chess set. "Where was the girl last night?" they asked, sweeping the chess pieces away. "She was on my porch," he answered, unblinking. "Why didn't you tell her mother?" "Because her mother screams, and the girl cries. The law doesn't leave room for motives." Martha said, "The old man saved me, but the adults heard only their own fears." At school, the whispers grew. The Dixons were trouble. Gray had a shady past. Mrs. Dixon pretended to believe her daughter, but she changed the locks and drew the curtains even tighter. Gray sat in his chair, reading an old letter he'd once written to his own daughter. "I wasn't a good father to you, but maybe I can be there for someone else." Rumors spread like mold. People avoided him at the grocery store. They crossed the street to avoid him at the park. The church held prayers for the safety of our children. Only Martha didn't give up. She left little notes on his doorstep. "Thanks for the chess. Thanks for the silence. Thanks for not yelling." One evening she knocked again. "Why does everyone think you're bad?" He was silent. Sometimes even old men don't have the answers. The revelation everyone's been waiting for. But are they ready for the truth when it comes knocking? Sometimes the truth is more painful than any rumor. Is the town ready to see what really happened behind closed doors? That evening, Martha decided to do the one thing she'd always been afraid to do: speak the truth out loud. No one at school was expecting her, but she walked straight into the principal's office and told everything: how her mother left at night, how she yelled, how there was never dinner, only silence and fear. "Mr. Gray is the only one who ever listened to me," she said, and finally the tears broke through. The principal listened in silence. Then he called social services. That same day, Mrs. Dixon had a surprise visit from child welfare officers. "Why does your daughter spend her evenings alone outside? Why is she seeking comfort from a neighbor?" The town buzzed. Maybe the old man's not a monster, but a savior? Gray, watching from his window, smiled for the first time in years. His reputation, like his house, was shabby, but someone had finally looked inside. That night, Martha brought him a new book. "Daddy, read to me." He took her hand, gently, as if it was the most fragile thing in the world. "Thank you for believing in me," she whispered. But outside, the town was still split. Some whispered about the strange friendship, others started petitions to defend him. That evening, everything depended not on gossip, but on someone taking a step toward another person. Who will put the final period? What happens tomorrow, no one expects. Are you ready for the truth? When fear fades and the truth remains, who has the courage to face it? Sometimes the real hero is the last one you suspect. Morning arrived with headlines: "Local man saves girl from domestic abuse." His mailbox was now full of thank you notes, not threats. Martha was relocated. By court order, she went to a foster family, but every week she visited Gray. Her mother vanished from town, leaving behind only a chipped mug on the porch and a pile of unpaid bills. Gray walked outside again, this time greeted not with stares, but with nods. One day, a young couple with a child sat on his porch. "Mr. Gray, could you teach us chess?" He laughed, for the first time in years. The town wasn't afraid of the truth anymore. And Martha wrote him a letter. "Thank you for being my family when I didn't have one." He read it and realized. You can do the impossible for someone else. The world might be shocked. But sometimes a miracle is just being there at the right time. The truth always finds a way, if someone's ready to accept it. And who will be the next hero? Find out in our next story. What if the rescued girl starts fighting for the one everyone else has rejected? Sometimes, the hero needs protection just as much as those he saves. Moving into a foster family, Martha tried to be the good girl. Her new mother kept everything in order: slippers by the door, homework on schedule, feelings locked up tight. But she couldn't shake the memory of evenings on the porch, the chipped teapot, and chess games that meant the world. The town started gossiping all over again. Maybe the old man wasn't so good after all? Gray almost stopped going out. his gate now had a "Do Not Disturb" sign. The newspapers forgot him as quickly as they'd made him a hero. One day, Martha found a way to see him again. She handed the school principal a handwritten story, no sugarcoating, just real details. About nights she sat on the floor waiting for her mom. About how, for the first time, someone didn't just walk past her tears. About chess, where every piece matters, not just the final move. The principal was surprised. "You really want the whole town to know this?" "Yes." She read her story at a parent-teacher meeting. Her voice shook, but her words were solid. "If not for Mr. Gray, I might not be here." A local journalist was in the audience. The next morning, the front page read, "Savior or Outcast, the Girl's Perspective." For the first time in months, Gray got an invitation instead of a threat to attend the school's celebration. Sometimes one honest voice outweighs 100 rumors. But are the adults ready to admit they were wrong? Everything will be decided in front of the whole town. When you're called to the stage, will you step out? The old man must decide, stay in the shadows forever, or show everyone who he really is. The school was glowing with decorations and excitement. Children's Day. For the first time in years, Mr. Gray got a personal invitation, signed by Martha herself. "I hope you'll come." He hesitated for ages, staring in the mirror. Old coat, scuffed shoes, tired face. "What do I have to offer these people?" A neighbor, seeing him waver, brought a fresh shirt. "Time to come out, old man. This town needs to see its real heroes." At the event, laughter and music filled the hall, but when Martha took the stage to share her story, the crowd fell silent. "This man taught me that sometimes, just being there is enough. Not every pain needs words, sometimes you need a friend." Gray listened from the hallway, hands trembling, heart pounding like a teenager's. When Martha finished, she asked for the person who became family to join her on stage. He stepped out. Hundreds of eyes watched him, some with suspicion, some with gratitude. Martha took his hand, and, for the first time, the town saw not a scary old man, but an ordinary person with kind eyes. The applause went on and on. After the event, other parents came to thank him. "Thank you for showing us how important it is not to ignore someone else's pain." But at home, Gray found an anonymous note. "People don't change. Don't think we've forgiven everything. A victory can be temporary when fear is stronger than memory. What's at stake isn't just reputation, but a chance for a new life. Can the heroes withstand another blow? Old grudges always find a way to bite back. Some are ready to forgive, but others thirst for revenge. The old man is blindsided, and now Martha must protect him." After the celebration, life seemed better, but suspicion still hung over the town. Martha noticed some kids now approached Gray, while others whispered behind his back. Adults split into two camps. Enough blaming this man. But it's still strange, why befriend a child? One day Gray came home to see "Outsider" scrawled in chalk on his door. On the sidewalk, shredded newspapers with "Scandal of the Year" headlines. He didn't complain, loneliness was an old friend. But now he worried about Martha, afraid she'd be bullied at school. And that's what happened. One day, kids cornered her and called her the old man's daughter. She stayed silent, but broke down crying at home that night. Her foster mom tried to comfort her, but Martha ran straight to Gray. "Why are people so mean?" "People fear what they don't understand," he answered. "It's not your fault that I needed you." Just then, the father of one of the bullies stormed into the yard. "Stop dragging other people's kids to your house, old man," he yelled. Gray didn't reply, but Martha, for the first time, stood up for him. If you had a friend like him, you'd never send anyone away. After that, Martha decided she would never be silent again. When a child learns to protect, and an adult learns to trust, the old order cracks. But can their friendship survive one more trial? The moment of truth is near. Who will throw the first stone when the truth is inconvenient? In the middle of the scandal, Martha learned something about Gray's past that could change everything. Old stories about Gray resurfaced. They say he lost his own daughter, the elders whispered. No smoke without fire. One day, Martha overheard. I heard his real daughter disappeared years ago. For the first time, she felt uneasy. What if he wasn't just a victim? That evening, she asked Gray directly. Did you have a family? He was quiet for a long time. Then, like a creaky door, he opened a box and pulled out a photo. A young woman and a girl of about 6, smiling brightly. Yes. Why did they leave? Because I was a bad father, he admitted. I tried to fix things, but it was too late. For the first time, Martha saw not just pain in his eyes, but guilt. If you want to leave, I'll understand, he said quietly. But Martha suddenly knew she had to stay. I'm not leaving. I'm your family now. That conversation was a turning point. The town didn't know it yet, but the next morning people who once avoided Gray's house came knocking. What hides behind guilt and fear? The last move in the game belongs to those who've learned to forgive. The finale is close. One step, and you either lose everything, or find what you've feared all your life. The ending will change not just the heroes, but the whole town. The day everyone dreaded arrived. Town Day, where the hero of the year would be announced. First, the mayor took the stage. This year, our town was tested, but real people show who they are in hard times. She called Martha and Mr. Gray on stage. The crowd fell silent. The mayor handed Martha the mic. Today, I want the town to hear, sometimes you need to believe in someone, even if they don't look like a hero. Martha spoke. About a childhood without warmth, about the yelling and the fear, about how a lonely old man wasn't afraid of her pain. Thank you for being there for me, she told Gray. The crowd gave a standing ovation. But everything changed when a stranger came to the stage, Martha's father, whom nobody expected. He dropped to one knee in front of his daughter. I found you only because Mr. Gray didn't hesitate to step in. Then he turned to the crowd. People, don't hide behind your fears. Sometimes one action can save a life. From that day on, people in town saw outsiders differently. Martha stayed close to Gray, and now, not only kids, but adults came to play chess at their house. For the first time in years, the old man stopped waiting for letters. Now he wrote postcards himself. To those who learned how to be a family. Even without blood ties. Every truth has a price. But if you're brave enough to pay it, your story can become hope for others. Don't miss the next chapter of life.